Hey, good morning. How are we doing?
Good morning. Hi, Peter.
Good morning, and how's everyone?
Fantastic. Well, I'll let you two take it away.
All right, thanks a lot. Good morning, Bob. How you doing?
I am well. Peter, yourself?
Doing great, thank you. And good morning to you, and good afternoon to our friends across the pond. I think this is a very timely Brand Innovators event, so I'm great that we get to be a part of it. I just feel like there's all this pent up demand that we've had over the past year. Me and my family have already done kind of our first family vacation this year that did include a 15-hour car ride. So I wouldn't recommend that if you are looking at doing a vacation. Um, but Bob, so we know that there's been like a significant impact to the travel industry over the past year in the pandemic, but we are seeing this remarkable, like resurgence in travel headed into, especially the summer months. What can you tell us about, the mission and the role of the New York State Tourism Industry Association, during this recovery?
Well, it, I think you need to recognize New York State among all of the various states in the United States was somewhat uniquely impacted. And that is because of the prevalence of international visitation to the state of New York. We suffered an overall loss of 54% decline in travel spending. And with that comes a 45% decline in tax revenues for local and state government, of course. But that decline puts us in total dollars in the top three nationally. And percentage-wise, it puts us in the top three, but we're the only state that makes both. So we were one of the top dollar losses in travel spending and one of the most heavily impacted as a percentage of total. And most of that impact hit us, unfortunately, in New York City, where 2 out of 3 travel dollars in New York State get spent, and they are hugely dependent on the traffic that comes in through JFK, Newark Liberty International, and LaGuardia. A lot of that is international. So it was difficult. Our role in this is to basically convene the industry. The day after New York pause, the New York State Tourism Industry Association held their first ever total state video chat with the TPAs, or tourism promotion agencies, representing each of the 62 counties. And we held that program every week right through the entire New York pause and into New York reopening, making sure that our members got all the information they needed on the progress of both the health crisis and the government regulations and restrictions as they changed and evolved over time right through reopening. That process, and like many things people discovered as they innovated to respond to the crisis, has become a routine now. We have a monthly call that involves all of the TPAs, and after our I Love New York update each month, that evolves into a full membership meeting to share evolving information, not just about the pandemic, but about the industry. We had, I think, an unprecedented motivation that brought people together to share best practice, talk about how they were coping in their local markets. And I think, I don't want to diminish or dismiss certainly the efforts of the healthcare community and our healthcare providers during the crisis. But I would like to draw some attention to the work of our tourism marketers, who immediately pivoted to, instead of marketing to the visitors, marketing to the residents and trying to support the local businesses. As you know, most local businesses, or most tourism related businesses, are not your big box stores. They're the unique local restaurant, the giftique, the boutique, the craft store, the winery, and they pivoted very quickly to encourage residents to spend now and shop later, buy gift certificates at local businesses during the pandemic, and shop when it's safe to do so, but give these folks an opportunity to survive and provide some immediate revenue. Entire websites were developed not only for the purchase of gift certificates, but to facilitate communications and connections with local restaurants that were offering curbside pickup and delivery services throughout the state. It was really just inspiring. And in addition, and you'll like this, there was a lot of video produced and a lot of video re-edited in order to enable our residents to explore their backyard when they couldn't leave their home. They could still explore what was in the neighborhood, what was around town. And in many cases, our residents found out things they never knew about their own community or the community nearby.
That,
So,
yeah, that's incredible. And I think your key word there, in the same word that I think we used in our prior conversation, was, you know, having the businesses having to pivot.
exactly.
So you had shared your website. You know, I read the message about your new trademark. Tourism. It's everybody's business. Can you kind of elaborate on the travel advocacy message that's on your site?
Okay. Yes. As you know, I Love New York is New York State's brand and its theme for travelers. And we are the New York State Tourism Industry Association, the private sector partner for the I Love New York folks. We work hand in hand. The head of I Love New York sits ex officio on our board of directors. Ross Levi, who is that individual, speaks at every one of our TPA meetings and membership meetings. And we developed, in the midst of the pandemic, a new identity, and it was somewhat inspired by what we saw. And that was to replace the O in tourism with a heart. And if you'd like, I can share that with you. And by sharing screen, bear with me for a second. So that gives you, oh, wrong screen. Hang on a second.
We see the logo. It's up there.
You see it? Okay. In any case, tourism, it's everybody's business, is our advocacy theme, but the word tourism with a heart in it, as of 2 days ago, we received official recognition of trademark from the United States government. And the reason we like it isn't just the fact that it ties back to I Love New York and indicates that we represent the same area, but it literally puts the heart in tourism and speaks to what tourism is really all about. Tourism is not a goal. That's the key to our advocacy message. Tourism is a means by which many other wonderful things are achieved. And people talk about economic growth. We talk about advancing economic growth, but we're more keyed to advancing job creation, small business success, community revitalization, the standard of living, but also the quality of living and pride of place for the resident in the community. The ultimate customer of tourism, from our perspective, is the resident. And the traveler is, our partner in making good things happen. The other thing that we need to drive home, New York State is not a small place. Just in sheer area, it's a little bit bigger than Greece or England. It's about 55,000 square miles. And there are so many opportunities to do things, and the industry is huge. It's the third largest industry in the state of New York, outside of New York City, where the financial market, number one, is dominant. In the other counties to the north of New York City, it's often the number one industry, if not number two, after agriculture. There's $72 billion spent by travelers in the state of New York in 2019. They generated $118 billion in total economic impact, created or supported 960,000 jobs for our residents, and contributed also $39 billion in personal income. So it's big business. And that's the second message we need to get across, because tourism amongst our legislative leadership and other parts of the business community it gets no respect. And out of consideration for the fact that I may be a little parochial here and reference a uh, and a comic icon that may not be relevant to everybody, Rodney Dangerfield, who is a iconic figure in American comedy, always said, "I get no respect." Well, tourism gets no respect, despite being not only big business in the state of New York, it is an exceptional contributor to the state's economic engine. But people don't think of tourism as business. And that also leads us to the phrase, it's everybody's business. We need to drive home to the local resident that tourism isn't just about parking issues and lines at the restaurant and traffic. It's about jobs and small businesses in your community and facilities that wouldn't exist if it weren't for tourism. Some of the iconic names that might be recognized elsewhere around the world, Saratoga Racecourse, the most attended race meet in the state of New York. It's opening today for visitors for the first time since the pandemic started. So great timing for today's call, but also the Baseball Hall of Fame here, Broadway wouldn't exist if it weren't for tourists. New York City's theater programs and many other of our destinations around the state of New York are heavily dependent on that. I also would like to, kind of draw attention to the fact that New York is heavily investing in the future of tourism and making the state not just a better place to live, but a better place to visit with a number of our assets. I last week attended the grand opening of the new Legoland Resort in New York State, the largest Legoland park in the world, and covers 600 acres. But at the same time, I spent most of the day yesterday online talking to people about the creation of a new national marine sanctuary on Lake Ontario on the shoreline of New York State. And 2 weeks ago, I was in Chautauqua at the National Comedy Center, which was opened in 2018 and named one of the top 10 family attractions in the world that year. So there's a lot going on.
Exciting stuff going on. I want to tie 2 points together. So you mentioned some percentages of impact early on, and you were mentioning you're kind of hitting some big revenue numbers, like $72 billion worth of spending was one number I heard. So, how big is that New York travel market, and like what was the impact on the local economy? You kind of hit some of those numbers, and then going out, and we can see you still got your screen up. Yep. And then, how do you see it changing post-pandemic?
I think, first of all, during the pandemic, we lost about half. We also lost nearly 330,000 jobs.
Wow.
The impact on the individual, 34% of the tourism employment was lost during this process. And that heavily impacted the state of New York, obviously, but the people of New York. And one of the things we discussed was our campaign in the context of this to get people to roam the empire. For those who don't know it, New York State has a heritage recognition as the Empire State. And we got a little playful with that, working with one of our members, Mower Advertising and Marketing firm, that did a fantastic job creating a pro bono campaign for all of our members. In fact, we made it available even to organizations that were not members to sign up and get involved in a campaign urging New Yorkers to explore their home state, not just during the pandemic, but in all of 2021. That has been just enormously well received. And it follows up on that exploration and discovery process that I talked about during the pandemic, where people created so much online video content and games and puzzles and other things to enable people to explore their communities. This is a call for folks to plan travel in state during 2021 to help not only restore jobs, but to restore vitality to communities, to enable small businesses to survive, and to restore the tax funding that our neighbors and communities rely on for their livelihood. We think of it as the coiled spring. I'm going to use a phrase that I first heard from Roger Dow, head of US Travel, but the idea that people's need to travel as a part of self-expression and self-fulfillment has been suppressed, and now it's exploding. Initially, traveling beyond the state borders was very difficult. And, there were all kinds of testing requirements to get out of the state and to get into another state and then return to the state. And as we discussed, we took advantage of that opportunity to urge New Yorkers to explore their backyard. We talked about a lot of other really exciting silver lining issues to that.
Well, yeah, we'll touch on that in a second. I want to kind of focus on this Roam the Empire campaign, because when we first talked about this, I wasn't even aware of everything that, New York State had to offer. Tell us a little bit more about the campaign, some of the things that you were sharing, from national parks to wineries. I mean, I don't want to, say everything. I'll let you kind of touch on it, and then, any kind of results that you're seeing from it.
Well, New York State has its biggest park is the Adirondack State Park, and it's 6 million acres. And when we put that fact out, we also said you could put Yellowstone and Yosemite, and we listed a handful of national parks that are just world renowned. They all fit inside the Adirondack Park. And in addition to that, we've got the Catskill Park, which is between 2 and 3 million acres in New York State. People think of New York State, they think of New York City, and they don't recognize that New York City only accounts for about 4% of our land area. And the other 96% has a lot to offer as well. We have nearly 400 wineries, and the Finger Lakes region in particular is rated one of the top 5 international wine destinations to visit. We have the 750-mile contiguous Empire State Trail that enables people to motorboat, paddle, canoe, kayak, pedal, or hike from Albany to from New York City to Montreal, from literally the southernmost point of our state to Canada, or from that matter from Albany across the state, east to west, into the Great Lakes. We also have 60 ski areas. We have more ski areas in upstate New York than exist in any other state in the United States. But these are all assets that many people in New York City and Long Island weren't aware of. It's, I hate to single them out, but they're the single largest population center. And with their inability to travel to California or Italy or France or Spain to visit a wine region, they suddenly discovered the wines of Long Island, the Hudson Valley, the Finger Lakes in Western New York. They discovered, because they couldn't ski in Vermont or fly across to the Rockies, all of these ski areas that were in their backyard. And as I like to say, they've used our, tremendous interstate highway system to drive by so many things. This pandemic, if you want to say there was a silver lining, it got them off the highways and into the byways and the roads less traveled, and they discovered all the things they were driving past that were much closer to home.
All those hidden gems.
Exactly.
All right, so with that campaign, you had kind of touched on some media channels and utilizing social and stuff. Like, tell us how do you think about a media mix, and how important is video and streaming TV? You mentioned that you guys are utilizing that a lot.
I'm gonna quote a statistic from Destination Analysts. Destination Analysts is a highly regarded market research firm focused on the travel industry. They're based in California, but we do a lot of work with them, and they indicate that over the past 5 years, the preference and utilization of online and streaming video has climbed 32%. Now, that's a big number, but it's even bigger when you stop and take a look at all the other media platforms and realize they declined during that period. It's not only the fastest growing, it's the only one that showed an increase in reference in terms of people's preference. And it's where I would say that the genesis or conception of a travel plan begins. People are inspired by what they see in the video, and then they'll go to the travel websites and they'll go to the review websites and they'll go to the destination websites and booking engines. They might explore, in print media, articles that they might have otherwise passed over. But what's really increasingly true is that it's the online and streaming video, the television platforms that are, the key to motivating a travel inspiration.
And that's one of those silver linings in the media space. The pandemic really just accelerated the adoption of video. So I think we've seen that. So that's I guess one other silver lining. Any other silver linings? We know that international travel is still largely shut out. Any other silver linings with having explore more, or any other attraction that you want to share? Did I freeze up?
You were breaking up at my end. I don't know whether that was
Sorry,
me or
Bob,
you,
did I cut out?
Peter. Can you hear me?
Sorry, Bob. I can hear you now. Where did I cut out?
Well, I heard it, but I heard it in bits and pieces that, the pandemic gave people an opportunity or a motivation to explore video online in ways they never had. It also inspired them to discover how they could work or attend school remotely. And I think that had a fantastic effect on things. In our state, what it's motivating is a move to be sure that high speed, high bandwidth internet is available everywhere, not just in the densely populated urban areas. And during the pandemic, one of the anecdotes I gave you was folks in upstate New York who were, as we reopened the state in June of 2020, unsure, do I reopen my lodge or my bed and breakfast or my cabins, much less my hotel? Are people going to come? And am I going to be able to operate safely? Can I meet all the different guidelines? And we were very, very assiduous about meeting the healthcare guidelines and, reopening safely to responsible travelers. But the big key is I from the people who called me with uncertainty, who I encouraged to open, I was getting calls. One place had a 12-room lodge and they booked the entire lodge for the entire summer on the first phone call.
Wow.
Other people experienced the best years in their history as a business, as people in urban areas said, let's just call, have they got good internet? If they've got good internet, then we're going to relocate for months, not weeks. We're going to relocate the family. We're going to relocate the extended family, and we'll work remotely. And if the children or young people are involved in academic pursuits, they can study remotely. And it really was transformational. And again, another silver lining during the pandemic.
And we're still in this Zoom environment, and so why not take advantage of it, especially when you have everything that you've been talking about that New York has to offer. Any other investments in like revitalizing some of those New York destinations or examples that you want to share as far as either New York State or NYC attractions?
Well, first of all, I'm going to hark back to the fact that our leadership at the state level as well as local level is visionary. I embrace a concept that I will call transformational tourism or tourism stewardship. That when you're the destination marketer in charge of a region or an organization, that it's your job, this is entrusted to you for a period of time that you're in service. When you're done and you hand that mantle over to the next individual or organization, you should hand something off that's better than what you were given. You've improved it. And it's my primary concern as it relates to sustainable tourism. I wholeheartedly support the environmental and quality of life issues that are expressed in sustainable tourism, but I have concerns if people embrace that without exception, that it also limits you to existing capacities, resources. Sustainable tourism, every definition I found, doesn't take into account a vision for a better future, just one that does no harm. And doing no harm isn't good enough. How can we do good? How can we improve a destination? And that's where I would look like, establishing a national marine sanctuary. It's going to be enormous economic benefit to that region, but at the same time, it's environmentally sensitive. It's preserving the environment. It does great things. The National Comedy Center that opened in Chautauqua took a decade to develop the concept and everything, but they took an abandoned, essentially unused downtown, railroad terminal and converted it into a world-class attraction. Similarly, the Empire State Trail simply connected all the pieces of the former Champlain and Erie Canal system that had, basically fragmented over the years, and has created now the largest contiguous hiker, biker, peddler, paddler, trail in the 48 states. New York has the greatest outdoor trail system now in the country. And that's just the Empire State Trail, not all the other trails that exist in the Adirondack and Catskill parks. So there's a lot of very good things going on. New York City, as you know, has gotten the extreme focus, and rightly so, where the rest of the state suffered some declines and contributed to that 54% loss. New York City suffered declines of like 80%. Wow. And because they did not have that international traveler, they didn't have the interstate traveler. Their museums were at very limited capacity. Their Broadway is just, at this point beginning to reopen. There was a lot of need for them to reestablish that they are a safe destination, ready for responsible travelers and good to go. And they also have the broadest market to reach out to internationally and globally. When people start coming back to New York City, we will see that traffic restored also to upstate, which is getting more and more international visitors each year.
That's incredible. And I love your idea. It was transformational and sustainable tourism.
Yes.
I think that's obviously incredible that, all states and countries should look at investing in. Bob, great conversation. So, hey, last question. So what about you? What are your travel plans this summer? I know you mentioned your hands are a little busy. You got a new grandbaby?
We, along with many other things, the pandemic coincided with the birth of my first two grandchildren. And so one of them is in the house today. In 2 weeks, my other daughter and her husband and my granddaughter will be visiting. But having said that, as I indicated 2 weeks ago, I was literally 500 miles away in Chautauqua, New York, visiting the National Comedy Center. That's where we will hold our first in-person event since the pandemic began. We will be in Jamestown, the home of Lucille Ball. And our members will be gathering in October of this year. So I not only toured, and this comes back to those concepts, the Comedy Center, which we're going to spend an evening there. You might want to come up, Peter. No holds barred, as it were, on Thursday night, October 21st. But I also explored the Peterson Institute, and dedicated to environmental issues particularly motivated by the career of Roger Tory Peterson. I also visited the Jackson Center for Human and Civil Rights. Jackson was a Supreme Court Justice, Adjutant General, and Attorney General of the United States, who also came from Jamestown. And both of these organizations hold international convocations each year to have dialogues about that. Jamestown is also home to the Chautauqua Institute, which has been a center of dialogue since the 1800s. Before there were TED Talks, there was Jamestown, before we had this opportunity. But I also will be up in Oswego to meet with the folks relative to the National Marine Sanctuary. I'm planning to be in Lake Placid at the Olympic Village to deliver some awards that they won during our recent Tourism Excellence Awards. And I also plan to be exploring parts of the Hudson Valley and get myself down to Cooperstown, where they're going to be welcoming some people into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling.
Just a couple of plans, just a couple of travel plans.
Yes, not to mention New York City. I'm long overdue for a New York City fix. So, but I sit here 15 to 20 minutes outside New York State's capital on a small 25-acre farm. And, New York gives you the opportunity to enjoy many different lifestyles in the same day.
That's incredible. And, congratulations on the grandbabies. That's really exciting. It's, I think you'll probably see a lot of grandbabies that are coming out from the pandemic.
Well, these arrived during, so, I can't, I do have a third grandchild that I'm not supposed to talk about actually, but will be arriving in about 6 months' time. We can maybe blame that one on the pandemic.
All right, well, congratulations. Well, I'm not seeing any questions that came through, so, definitely appreciate your time, and thanks Brand Innovators for hosting us. So I think we're going to turn it back over to them.
Okay. Maybe we're a little early.
We could be, but I'll go ahead and hang up, Bob, but great talking with you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
If anybody is interested in any of the concepts talked about today or initiatives, happy to field your inquiries. My email is bob@nystia.org. Thank you. So long, Diana. A little early.
Hello, thank you both.
I'll go ahead and hang up, Bob, but great talking with you.
Take care. Thank you.
Everybody.
Great session. I really enjoyed it. I am actually usually based in Europe, but here in my house.
If anybody is interested in any of the concepts talked about today or initiatives, happy to field your inquiries. My email is bob@nystia.org. Thank you. So long, Diana.
Hello, thank you both so much.
Bob, but great talking with you.
Take care. Thank you.
Great session. I really enjoyed it. I am actually usually based in Europe, but here in my house.
If anybody is interested in any of the concepts talked about today or initiatives, happy to field your inquiries. My email is bob@nystia.org.